All right, so welcome to CS plus creativity. We are going to be looking at computer science and creativity as an outlet for computer science. Go ahead and enter in the chat where you are, maybe what you teach, where you're from, see who all is with us today. Great. I see all of those messages flowing in the chat. We're going to be doing a lot of interactive work in our hour today together. So I just want to set the stage that I'm going to have you guys click on some links. You're going to be doing some activities, answering some questions. I'm going to ask you guys to share in the chat. So that's an expectation. You guys can also unmute if you would like to share and unmute that way, share via audio. It's great to have all of you guys here. The first thing we're going to do to get started is looking at creating and what does creating look like in this digital age we live in. So let's take about 4 minutes to read this "The World Needs More Creators" article. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this link in the chat. And this link will take you to what I call a workshop guide. Here in our workshop guide, you'll see the slide we're on, "The World Needs More Creators." And then next to it, you're going to see any important links or information that you might need. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put this link in the chat so that way you guys can access the "World Needs More Creators" article. The workshop guide is there in the chat. Oh, actually, I just put the I put the article in there. I'm sorry. Hold on just 1 second. Let me copy that again. Double click it just to make sure. I'm so sorry about that, folks. Okay, here we go. The workshop guide is now in the chat. So once you click on that link in the chat, you will open the workshop guide. I see some of you popping in here. Let's take 4 minutes and just skim through this "World Needs More Creators" by A.J. Giuliani article. Okay, go ahead and find a good stopping spot in the World Needs More Creators article. Go ahead and join me back on this video. So in this article, the world needs more creators and less commenters. AJ Giuliani says, we want to see teachers unleash the creative potential in all of their students so that kids can be makers, designers, artists, and engineers. Research shows that students that are in school now, in elementary school now, the generation of students, is predicted to have the fewest individuals pursuing artistic types of careers, basically. And that's really interesting. So how can we leverage computer science to be a new outlet for creativity for students? And what does that look like in terms of art and designing and making for our students? So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started by creating something with a Scratch project. So let me just minimize my screen here. I'm going to put the link to Scratch in the chat. And go ahead and enter in the chat. Have you used Scratch before? Anybody in our group that is familiar with Scratch? You use it all the time and an expert. You've used it a couple of times, never used it at all. Used CS First, which uses the Scratch platform. Karen, that's great. There's a lot of great organizations that partner, like Microbit partners with Scratch and Arduinos, and used it as a student, not as a teacher. Great. So I just put this link to Scratch in the chat. And what we're going to do just really quick is we're going to get our brains creating this morning, or this afternoon, I'm sorry. So what we are going to do is you are going to just create a really quick dialogue on Scratch about why you became a teacher or an educator if you're in a different position, like a coach, instructional designer. So why did you become an educator? And the goal of your project is that you have two sprites, so two characters, two items that are communicating dialogue back and forth between each other. And one more clue for those of you that are new to Scratch, you will just be using the yellow and the purple blocks. So once you click on the link to Scratch, you'll go, this is what it'll look like when you get there. And you're going to click on create because you are going to create this program, this dialogue about why you became an educator. You can X out of the tutorial when you get there. So here you go. Once you get there, this is what it looks like. You have backdrops down here in the back right corner. And so that's going to be your backgrounds. You can search for different backgrounds, get creative, have fun with this. The point is that for you to have fun and be creative in creating this dialogue between your two sprites. So again, you're just going to use purple and yellow blocks. Does anybody have any questions before we get started with this activity? I keep looking over here because my second monitor is over to this side, and that's where the chat is. If we don't have any questions, go ahead and click on the Scratch link in the chat. And they are discussing why you are discussing why you became an educator, Karen. So you're having maybe somebody ask you, or maybe two people. It could be very creative. I'm getting all these ideas in my head. So it could be two people talking about the need for good education, but they're discussing why you became an educator. If you have any more questions, put them in the chat. And let's just take about 5 minutes to create this.
get used by you. Some of them want to abuse you. Some of them want to be abused. Sweet dreams are made of this. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody is looking for something. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to get used by you. Some of them want to abuse you. Some of them want to be abused. Sweet dreams are made of this. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Sweet dreams are made of this. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Sun is shining in the sky. There ain't a cloud in sight. It stopped raining. Everybody's in the play. And don't you know, it's a beautiful new day. Hey, running down the avenue. See how the sun shines brightly in the city. On the streets where once was painted Mr. Blue. Sky is living in here today. Hey, Mr. Blue Sky, just tell us why. Had to do for us.
Let's go ahead and find a stopping spot. If you didn't finish creating your dialogue and your scene, that's all right. You can always come back to it later. The point was really just to get everybody creating and doing some computer science and some coding, and to show you that you can integrate computer science with your students very easily, and it doesn't have to be something that is very complicated or strenuous. So maybe thinking about the beginning of the year with students, or maybe at the end of the year with students, you could use an activity like this where students are maybe introducing themselves, telling about their hobbies, about their favorite things they like, their pet peeves, really team building, classroom building in your class and learning environment. And then you can also, just like we did, we looked at the yellow and the purple blocks, and those are the event and the looks blocks in Scratch. And so you can just really set some constraints around an activity like this with your students, and just try it out at the beginning of the year, something fun. But also connecting computer science to content and classroom outcomes, learner outcomes is another great way to allow students to be creative and show what they know through that product of learning. So I'm curious, what's the last thing you had students create in your class? I see in the chat says, first time Scratch user, can you show an example of the dialogue? So absolutely, I'm gonna come in here to Scratch. And so I'm just gonna show you a really quick example of the dialogue. For example, you could use this event block when the green flag is clicked. Then maybe the cat will say hello for a few seconds. We add another character in here. In Scratch, you definitely have to click on the sprite that you're coding. So if I want to make sure I'm coding my new character that's doing, not the dab, but doing some kind of dance here, I need to make sure on the bottom I'm clicked on Amon. And then I'll say maybe Amon, when the space bar is clicked, he's going to say something else. And maybe what he says is why he became a teacher. And you type that right in this box. So that is how you do the dialogue on Scratch. I'll go ahead and put those instructions in the workshop guide as well. But really just using these boxes that you can see here on the screen, the yellow and the purple boxes, is how you do that dialogue. So let's revisit this question. Enter in the chat or feel free to unmute. What was the last thing you had students create as makers, designers, artists, or engineers? It doesn't have to be related to computer science, but it can be. What was the last thing you had students create? The last thing you have students create as makers, designers, artists, or engineers, career portfolios, wall wraps, app studio to create apps about heat. Amazing, this is all cool stuff. Mine, Scratch videos. So this is great. We're all using different outlets to have our students create. Some of us are using technology and computer science outlets. Some of us are using other outlets to have students create, be designers and artists. And we're going to carry that through us when we think about how can we continue to have students innovate and create with computer science, and what does that look like? This article, The Lost Einsteins, is an article by MIT, and it's a really interesting article that I thought was worth having everybody here. Just take about 2 to 3 minutes to skim this article called The Lost Einsteins. So this article should be in your workshop guide. Oh, it's not in your workshop guide, so I'll pop it over here in the chat really quick. And this Lost Einsteins article, just take a couple of minutes, read through the article, skim through the article, and then we're going to answer this question: how does the class, or how does the student's environment, not just a classroom environment, but how does the student's environment influence their decisions and their behaviors? So let's take about 3 to 4 minutes. The article link is in the chat, and let's look at this Lost Einstein article. Go ahead and find a stopping point if you're still reading the article or skimming through that. I'm going to put the link in the chat one more time just for anybody that might have missed it or anybody that wants to save it. So what we're finding out is that computer science can be an outlet of creativity and innovation for students. And we're at dire need now more than ever for more diverse innovators and creative forces and divergent thinkers in our society and as a global nation and as a country ourselves. Let's think about how do environments inside and outside of the classroom influence future opportunities for students. Think about this question for a minute. Go ahead and respond to this question in the chat. Karen, I love your response in the chat. Inside the classroom might offer more equitable access to all students. It's a very positive outlook and how transformative and vital our jobs as educators are in the classroom to offer these opportunities and access to students. So just to put another magnitude and shine another light on the MIT Lost Einstein's articles, and not only are we missing out on all of these innovators and these diverse minds that can change norms and system processes for the better, but we're also missing, these students are also missing out on something that we like to call economic justice. The types of job opportunities that are available for computer science are on your screen. And the average salary for these jobs is incredible. What this graph here is, I want to see if anybody can guess. Can anybody guess what information this graph is telling us besides average salaries? Can you put that in the chat or unmute? What do you think that this graph is telling us besides average salary? See as careers, variety of job opportunities. So this does show definitely careers and a variety of job opportunities. What it is showing in more detail is the type of job opportunities that we export to other countries, to visa holders, things like that. So this is like a ton of money that our students could get in our classroom, and we're exporting all of these jobs. Where it says number of LCA, that's how many jobs are being exported for the rank over here. So these are the top 12 jobs for H-1B1 visas in the United States. I think this was like 2019 or 2020. And you can see most of these 12 jobs over here are computer science jobs. So we are drastically needing innovators and creators. And we are also drastically under preparing our students in our education system with skills and knowledge in computer science. So there's two really big gaps here we can fill by utilizing computer science as a tool for creativity. Some of you might be familiar with this. Let me see what time it is, check it there. Okay, some of you might be familiar with this code.org video, CS is changing everything. It's a great video. I'm gonna actually skip over it because we're just running a little short on time. But you can Google the video if you aren't familiar with it. I would definitely recommend watching that. I would rather spend our time watching this How Computer Science Made Me Brave video. Computer science is looking at computer science as a creative force and looking at computer science as an identity builder for our CS students, for those lost Einsteins that we could be impacting and changing the lives of. So let's take a quick minute to watch this video.
But when learning to code, I usually miswrote half my lines. I got used to screwing up. And it was screwing up those lines of code that taught me to embrace improvement instead of aiming for perfection. So on I went. And come graduation, I stood in front of classmates, parents, and teachers and spoke on the topic of embracing failure. Computer science gave me a voice, and I was beginning to use it beyond the screen. With each game or tool that I built, I realized that I was more than just a nerd. I learned that coding allows for just as much creativity as painting, music, or acting. I had the power to create magnificent things. In a world where most everything of value seems to require qualifications, whether that be years of school or certifications, there's something so empowering about a meaningful endeavor without these prerequisites. The ability to pick up a pen, a paintbrush, a ball, or a keyboard and find creativity can give anyone confidence and a voice. I believe that computer science is a creative field, giving anyone the ability to code. You don't have to be good at math or understand how a computer works. The computer does not care where you are from or what you look like.
Cut the video off a little early, but this is a really great TED Talk about how computer science is an outlet of creativity for a lot of students. And it's also a relevant outlet of creativity since students are using artificial intelligence, social media, things like that every day. So let's think, how does computer science embody creativity and problem solving? How does computer science embody creativity and problem solving? Once you have your answer to that, enter that in the chat. How does computer science embody creativity and problem solving? I see some great responses in the chat. Karen says, what you can code is endless. There are really no limits. Chandra says, the use of critical thinking. Ariel says, allowing students to create apps and games and programs. They don't get it right the first time. They develop determination and perseverance to make it the outcome they desire. So having that perseverance, that persistence. Great, thank you guys. So computer science and creativity and problem solving are all essential skills for our students, the kiddos we're teaching in this ever-changing world. And so marrying creativity and computer science is really the way we need to think about integrating computer science into our class. It's not that we're teaching a new subject, it's that we are giving students a new outlet to express creativity. So with that, we're just going to jump into making something fun that you are going to get started on, probably won't finish, but just creating a CS creativity choice board. So I have a few examples of choice boards to get you guys started, just templates. Some of them have activities or links in them. You can feel free to use those, change them. You can feel free to make choice boards that are concentrated on different content areas like computer science and English, computer science and math, computer science and social studies, or it can just be computer science and free time. Maybe it's a free time choice board for Fun Fridays if you're in K-8 or something like that. But we're going to do something fun and make a choice board, something you can use and take away for your classroom. So there's different types of choice boards. Obviously, we know that as educators, there's so many different types of choice boards out there. You can categorize your choice board like this. You can see here, this is a classroom teacher who has coding on her choice board. She also has addition and subtraction, music, reading, robotics, things like that. So this could be a choice board where you are creating things for your class and some computer science extensions. This is more of a typical choice board. These are more the choice boards I've created just in slides or Google Docs, just some instructions. Kids mark things off as they move through them. You can do these, virtually with the links, or you can do them printed. These Bitmoji and interactive classroom choice boards, these are a really fun way to do choice boards, and these really emerged during COVID. We did a lot of workshops on these Bitmoji and interactive classrooms. So you can definitely create a choice board out of the classroom that you can just reuse with students. You could create a few a year and reuse them with students. And then Symbaloo is a great option for a choice board as well. And you can create a free Symbaloo account as an educator. So we're going to spend the next, I say about 10 to 15 minutes. I'll pull us back in about 15 minutes, but we're going to spend time to create a choice board. And to find the resources and links, it's going to be in the workshop guide. The workshop guide is going to be in the chat. I do see we have like one new person that joined us. So I do want to be sure I put the workshop guide link in the chat for you. There it is. So anybody that's new and hasn't opened the workshop guide, the link is in the chat. Once you get there, you're going to see this this choice board slide right here. And you'll see these leveled resources here. Some of these are CS and math specific resources, but down here is where the choice board examples are that you can get started to do your CS plus creativity choice board. So think about what you can do for students beginning of the year. Tell me about yourself, fun when you finish your work activities. What can you do for students to be creative with computer science in the form of a choice board? Take about 15 minutes and I'll see you guys back here.
Blue sky, just tell us why you had to hide away for so long. Where did we go wrong? Hey, you with great face. Welcome to the human race. A celebration. The blue skies up there waiting. And today is the day we prayed for. Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why you had to hide away for so long. Where did we go wrong? Hey there, Mr. Blue. We're so pleased to be with you. Look around, see what you do. Everybody smiles at you. Hey there, Mr. Blue. We're so pleased to be with you. Look around, see what you do. Everybody smiles at you. Tell us why you had See what you do. Everybody smiles at you.
Hey, just a couple of minutes to finish up those choice boards. Hope you guys are getting some good ideas down. All right, so that wraps up the workshop we have today with CS and creativity, talking about how CS is that outlet for creativity. It's not an additional subject we have to teach students, but it's another form we can let students express themselves through. And getting some chance to create that workshop guide for you to use in your classroom at the beginning of the year, connected to a content area. Um, on the end of your workshop guide, the very last slide there, you'll see there's a link to MindSpark. If you want to find out more information about MindSpark, we're an educational nonprofit, a national nonprofit, work across the United States and internationally. And there's a CSPD idea board LinkedIn, and then there's also information, just need help grant writing. We help do all sorts of different types of grant writing related to computer science, and we are here to be thought partners and collaborators with you. Thank you guys for being part of the session today. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the conference.